Mike Addick. I looked myself up on the internet. Turns out I'm a singer. And the truth of the matter is that I think everybody in here has sang the same song before we get here. At least that's what the book tries to get me to see is I really did sing the Alcoholics National Anthem, I'll Never Do It Again, and used again after that. Because that's one of the requirements of realizing that I've got the first step, realizing that I'm an addict, is that I've tried to quit for good and meant it and not been able to do so. So I sang, that's about the only song that I can sing, but I have sang that song, and that is some true stuff. When I think about Fred, I think about how, he was like me, there was comfort in knowing that at least I know what's wrong with me. That's what they were talking about on the self-knowledge. But he told them, thanks for the information, we'll see you later. And he went off and crashed and burned and came on back. But somebody mentioned the little fella, and I saw something on the Facebook today, face crack today, and somebody had said something about the fella. I've seen him, I don't know him. And somebody that evidently wasn't one of us made a comment on it, which raised the very devil. I mean, there was like 100 comments after this, lambasting this guy, calling him every name in the book. You don't know what he's talking about and all these things. And I thought, man, they're really coming down on this guy for saying one sentence. So I decided to go back and see what the guy actually said that raised such a ruckus. And it goes along with the topic, because what the guy said was, he said, we need to realize the seriousness and the deadliness of this. And then he said, we got to not take the first one. That's all he said. And of course they all came in. People I know, and I was just talking about before the meeting, when somebody's died, there's certain things you don't talk about. You just don't talk about it. You just let them feel bad and don't say anything. Like if somebody dies in the meeting, you don't say everything happens in God's world by mistake. You just don't say it in that meeting. Even though 99% of the time that may be true. So I got to looking at what the guy actually said, and he said, we got to know the seriousness of this disease and its fatality. And I got to thinking, is that not what we say in every single meeting? Is that not what our book talks about? We must comprehend their fatality and futility. It says, go on to the bitter end, jails, institutions, and death. Another place, to drink or use is to die. So the first point, you're going, okay, well, maybe he's not one of us, but does he know what he's talking about? I had to say, well, shit, we say that at every meeting. The book is full of that. The second thing he says, we got to not take the first one. And I got to thinking about that. It seems like that we say that in every meeting. In Fred's story, in our book, it talks about the academic observations of the real alcoholic on 20 and 21. It talks about these observations about the guy who's the real alcoholic, who's more or less always insanely drunk and building the house of cards and crashing it down. It says these observations would be academic and pointless if he never took the first one, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. It talks about on 37, it talks about the mental state preceding the first drink is the crux of our problem, not once we start. I don't think anybody would argue that once you start, you get the craving and you can't stop. But that's not what was being talked about. What was being talked about is the first one, which is what we talk about. Because we know that once I'm off the stuff, no matter what it is, the program steps in and helps me with the mental state so I don't take the first one. That's what the guy said. Of course, he said the truth. He may not have known it, but he did know what he was talking about because he said things that we say in every single meeting, and it's all throughout the book, that I should realize how deadly this is, and that I should do something to not take the first one. Now, I don't know who the guy is. I don't know any of the names except for the people that commented, and I don't hold anything against anybody that commented that crucified this guy, whoever he is. I really don't care. But what's interesting is that the main focus of what everybody was saying is you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, dude, in various and sundry ways, in not too colorful language, very colorful, mind you. But the fact of the matter is that not only does he know what he's talking about, he seems to know more than 95% of the people in the entire fellowship, because that's how many don't make it. That's how many don't realize what he just got through saying, which is the crux of Fred's story, right? I got to realize how serious this is. And he had to realize, I can't take the first one. Otherwise, I'm going to end up in a taxi without my wife running around town for a week. And he's supposed to meet her at the airport. They're talking about Fred. That's what he just read. So I found it very illustrative today, reading the 100 comments, lambasting the fella that said the two things, when in reality, he was the only one in the whole fucking discussion that knew what he was talking about. And I've just proved it to you. I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps in my past.
Thank you, Mike.